Hey, it's your guy Tyrell back with the interviews. France are World Cup champions, but how did they do it? Were they deserved winners? Where did Croatia go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how France beat Croatia. So France are your World Cup champions of 2018. There were no upsets. They got the job done. But how did they do it? Where did Croatia go wrong? Did Croatia possibly outplay France and still lose? When we break it down, we have France in a 4-2-3-1. Giroud ahead of Griezmann on the flanks, Mbappe and Matuidi in midfield. You have Pogba and Kanté. Croatia 4-3-3 as well. Rebic, Mandzukic, Perisic up front, and midfield Rakitic, Modric, Brozovic. When we really have to break it down, we have to think about how Croatia started the game. They did very well in the sense that they were pressing from the front, trying to force France into defensive mistakes, trying to squeeze them out of the game and look to win the ball near their box and score goals. When they did break out of the back, you saw Mandzukic staying tight and working hard to chase down the center backs. The wide players stayed tight on Pavard and Hernandez. Perisic in particular breaking into tackles, helping out Strinic to break and press Mbappe. We didn't see him provide much coverage for Strinic throughout the tournament, but here in the first half specifically, he was very tight on Mbappe when Mbappe got the ball. That allowed Modric and Rakitic to step a bit forward. When Pogba and Kanté tried to pick up the ball, they were there. There were defensive worries that did occur when France were trying to play out the back. We had Hernandez who picked up the ball, then Modric came over to him and he nearly got dispossessed. We saw Pavard run into an issue and Perisic drive forward down the left-hand side before Umtiti sweeped up. France were struggling to get forward. They were struggling to break forward, and this was down to the way Croatia pressed. There was one instance where Kanté picked up the ball from deep and you see Modric stepping to him, then Mandzukic from behind steps as well and dispossesses Kanté. They were struggling to get out of the back. We didn't know how France would get forward. Obviously, they have Giroud as an outlet. Obviously, we knew that Croatia couldn't press like that for the entire game. When they did drop off, you had to question where they would find answers. They tried to get to Mbappe at any opportunity that they could, but he was marked very tight. You would have Strinic very tight on him. You would have, obviously, Perisic tight on him. He didn't really get that many chances in the first half. You could probably think of two in particular. One where they do win the ball in midfield and they do slide him in free down the right, but Vida came across to cut off that option. You look at the other opportunity that he did get. He actually ran by both defenders, ran outside, his pullback from the byline cleared. Mbappe wasn't having the best night. They weren't really getting service into him. That was a big issue for France. But France often sat off based on the fact that they couldn't build out of the back. Croatia gained ascendancy early. France dropped into more of a 4-4-2 like we expected. They didn't have Mbappe drop back earlier on. What we saw is Brozovic was obviously deeper. They didn't want him to control the game earlier on, so they had Griezmann and Giroud stick tight to him. They pushed the fullbacks forward. Vrsaljko obviously trying to get forward. Matuidi would shuttle out to him. And then what would happen here is that they would have Strinic try to get forward. If Strinic did get forward, what they would do is have Pogba shift over. Kanté was obviously tracking the runs of Modric. Rakitic often sat a bit deeper, looking to get on the ball, looking to play passes. When he did step forward, they'd have Pogba come across to do a dual job, and that was one big issue for them. But at times, they were trying to get the overload down the right-hand side. Modric would shift over. You would see Matuidi step to him, Kanté shift over. If they couldn't get Kanté to shift over and Matuidi was already there, they always had a spare man, so Griezmann or Giroud could get out there to stop Modric from really influencing the game. You think about Croatia's best chances, a lot of it stemmed down the left-hand side where Perisic was running at Pavard. We named the one opportunity in the earlier stages. There was one where Pavard actually attacked the same ball as Varane. That left space available. Obviously, you have Rakitic open. He nods the ball down that flank. You see Perisic breaking free. His cross was pulled back. You think about after they had conceded, there was an overlap down that same side because Mbappe wasn't getting back or wasn't encouraged to get back. Pogba was out of position. What you have is Perisic running. Strinic obviously making the overlap. Perisic cuts out, delivers a cross into Rebic, breaking in. He fires his shot wide. We had Perisic and Rebic obviously swapping flanks, trying to get involved, but France were very organized. They couldn't create chances. You look at the goals that were scored in the first half. You think about Griezmann, the free kick, Croatia's defensive line just a bit too deep. Any ball that hits someone in that zone, there's a great chance of going into the net. You think about Croatia's goal, France unable to clear their lines. Then it falls to Perisic, a superb hit. You think about the controversial penalty. Obviously, we're not going to get into that, but none of it came from open play, and that was the big issue with the final. There weren't many created chances, so we have to go to the second half. What changed there? Croatia, obviously you're looking to get forward, but France did make a change, dropping into more of a 4-4-2, and what happened is that they had Matuidi and they had Mbappe now do a defensive job. When the fullbacks got forward, they would tuck out wide. And what would happen is that now you had the midfielders obviously sitting a bit deeper, but you'd have Modric on Griezmann. You'd have Giroud obviously looking to get towards Rakitic. They allowed Brozovic to have a lot of space throughout the second half, playing passes from deeper. We'll get to that just in a second. Mandzukic obviously up front. In the earlier stages, Croatia were getting forward and doing a good job. You look at one opportunity where it is Pogba that shifts out, and Rakitic is lucky to get the ball. He steps forward. He plays a ball into that space for Rebic. Rebic fires his shot on goal. Then you have, again, the wider players just tucking in a bit narrow so the fullbacks can get forward. Rebic and Perisic. France are obviously a bit higher. Brozovic from his own half lobs a ball over the defense. Perisic breaks free on goal. Unable to really get a shot off. Lloris steps out because of the Varane touch and clear their lines. But that was the route that they were really trying to go down. Rakitic again getting space because Giroud wasn't getting close to him quick enough. He delivers a cross into the box. Mandzukic attacks it. Lloris clears the lines. But that was the big issue for France, was the fact that Rakitic was slowly getting onto the ball. As the game wore on, you saw Giroud switch sides with him on occasion. Griezmann, on the other hand, was sitting on Modric, ensuring that he couldn't really dictate the tempo of the game. And they were fine with Brozovic switching the play, switching it out wide. And then when they had Perisic run at Pavard, he actually did a better job in the second half. Crosses were often being overhit. He wasn't connecting with his teammates. They didn't have runners into the box. Vrsaljko and Strinic couldn't get cross into the box due to great work from Mbappe, from Matuidi. Matuidi eventually came off. They brought on Tolisso. He did the similar job. They brought on Nzonzi for Conte. Now that, we don't know if it was because Conte had a yellow card or the fact that, one, France were sitting a bit deeper, two, he's a defensive presence, a physical presence, could win aerial duels, and the fact that he's a reliable passer, and France were struggling during that spell to retain possession, and that's what happened there. So him and Pogba sat a bit deeper, and when you think about the chances that stemmed, they all came on the counterattack. As Croatia pushed forward with their fullbacks, and Mbappe had space to attack. In two instances, you really see how much of a threat he is with his speed. One, it's a Giroud not down. Pogba slides the ball around Strinic, and then he runs at Vida. Obviously, you expect him to do a bit better, but he cuts outside, forces the keeper into a save. The third goal, it stems from something similar. Again, it's just Griezmann nodding it down to Pogba. This time, he clips it around Strinic. He gets forward again. Mbappe can't really get a cross off, so he pulls it back to Pogba. His shot's blocked, but then he finishes superbly. Then you look at the final goal, again, more wing play. It's Hernandez, and this time it's Mandzukic and who switches over, and he turns him, runs out Vrsaljko. Hernandez picks out Mbappe. Vida doesn't want to step to him, and then he fires a superb shot past the keeper. They brought on Kramaric for Rebic. He dropped off, tried to combine with his teammates from a narrow left position, but again, Croatia weren't getting anything going. Vrsaljko and Strinic were blocked off. No service into Mandzukic. Griezmann pressed Modric out of the game. They were fine with Brozovic switching the play from flank to flank, and they weren't creating opportunities, but as they pushed men forward, the threat of Mbappe on the counterattack, Pogba's great range of passing, and then the fact that they could push men forward so quickly exploited Croatia, and finally a team with speed were able to get by that backline, and Croatia didn't have any answers. They couldn't create any chances from open play, and the issue that they've had throughout the tournament finally came back to haunt them, whereas France sat deep like they did throughout the latter stages of the tournament, had the threat on the counterattack. They relied on their defensive solidity. Varane was superb when they did get dangerous crosses into the box. You think about Perisic and Modric delivering 2 dangerous crosses. He cleared their lines, and when you have the threat of Pogba, Mbappe, Griezmann on the counterattack, you are going to make a lot of teams pay if they give you space to run into. But let me know what you guys think. Were France worthy World Cup winners? Did Croatia deserve more? Did Croatia punch above their weight? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.